Welcome. We're living at a time like no other on planet Earth. Spiritual, physical, metaphysical, insights, wisdom, challenges. We're more connected by technology and less connected to each other. We're all seeking answers, and we're often too busy to listen for the truth. Her story and his story and our story. I research, I question, I look for answers to share with you, exploring higher visions. Authors and publishers and creatives, all bringing us their empowerment tools, their insights. And I'm mining for those gems of wisdom. In these podcasts, we'll delve into the tears of sorrow, joy, awe, anger and overwhelm, the challenges, the triumphs of life. What works for some people and might work for you. We share the fiery energy of transformation, healing, inspiration, and lots of revelations. I am Catherine Whalen Costin, an author, an artist, a storyteller, a podcast producer and host. I'm a fellow human sharing this journey of life with you on the planet at this time. Let's chat. Let's explore. Hello friends, it's Catherine. I'm happy to be here during the beginning of the holiday season to share with you some of my thoughts on going through the holidays when you've experienced loss or grief or real challenges in life that you are finding the holidays really difficult. And as per usual, I am not a doctor. I'm not offering any medical advice. I am speaking from my own personal experience of going through multiple times in my life where I've had very deep loss or situations where I've been in grief. Some of the things I've learned from that. I have shared some of the lessons from loss, trauma, grief in my memoir, Permission to Breathe, which is available on my website, CWC Art and Soul. And I will include slides in this video of my art that is available on the website, original acrylic art, as well as the book, as well as my fashions, which I'm really excited to be offering a new holiday season fashion designs. So all the links are on the website, so you can get that. But this is really going to be about talking about grief, trauma, what to do when you are dealing with it yourself, or if you have someone close to you that's going through a grief period or deep loss, and how do you interact with those people? And how do you handle the holidays where everyone's super excited and you're not, perhaps. Maybe this is a year you're not. So we're going to get into all of that. Also looking at the influence of social media, pros and cons of it, and what I'm noticing about since before COVID and now, where we still have COVID, but we have less restrictions, but we have a lot of social media fallout, I'll say. Some revelations that have come to my observation and maybe to yours as well. That's what we're going to be talking about today, and I hope this will be helpful to you. And if so, please don't hesitate to leave comments. And for the subscribers, I really appreciate you so much. And as I'm trying to grow this channel and hoping that I'm offering you something that is valuable to you. And if you like what you're seeing, please don't hesitate to let me know, like, subscribe, comment. And if you have other topics that you'd like me to talk about that you maybe know that I'm either you've read my book or looking at my art or whatever it might be, let me know. And I have a great guest coming up later in early December who is an author of a new book that's just been launched called Food of Love. A really great book, and it'll be really fun to explore with Sylvia Vetta about her journey and how and why she wrote that book. So that's coming up soon. So what's going on? How are you feeling about the holiday season? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you dread it? Do you feel obligation? I hear that a lot from a lot of people. So often in life, we are met with these occasions, and holidays can be anything from the mass marketed holiday. We call it the holiday season. It's because it includes a lot of different holidays, different religious holidays, different seasonal holidays, things that we acknowledge and celebrate. It doesn't have to be formal, but it is a season. And I think in North America in particular, we're really aware of the vast, extreme contrasts between the hype, the festivities, and the less sunlight, the shorter days that can be really hard for a lot of people. Many cases, if you are disabled or you're a senior, you may find yourself in the winter months quite housebound. And so you don't have the interaction with other people. You can't, maybe it's not safe to walk or to get outside in the cold weather. Maybe the sidewalks in your area are not cleared and it's a little too icy or too, you don't have access. You don't have the same freedom that you might have during the summer or spring or fall. Winter does have that extra dynamic, and that can mean staying inside and only interacting with your television or if you have social media. And that really limits your senses because it's all visual, some sound, but there's no taste and touch and feel involved in those things. And I think that adds to the sense of loss, grief. It can make it seem more out of balance. It can make it feel like if we don't have access to connecting with other people in particular, it can make things that normally we would not notice, can make them seem more exaggerated, especially if we have experienced some sort of loss. And who hasn't? I mean, life is about those ups and downs. We have a lot of stigma around loss and whether or not what does it mean? And I'm always asking that question. I've always asked that question in my life when things happen. Why did it happen and what does it mean? Those are the two questions that perplex me all the time. And I'm always exploring them and sometimes I find the meaning, then I find a new meaning, and then a deeper meaning. And then I realize mostly the meanings are my own and they're not a collective meaning. Whether or not you are feeling the exuberance of the season or not does depend on what's gone on in your life, no doubt about it. So what I like to recommend to people is to really honor themselves. Honor your feelings, honor your emotions, honor your state of affairs. Because as much as we have no control over the seasons, winter, spring, summer, fall, we don't get to control that. We don't control day, night. We don't have any say in those things. And at the same time, we can't, whether we're prepared for it or not, winter comes. You're going to need your snow tires in many places. You're going to need certain clothing. It's going to be here. It's something we come to know. And if you live in different areas of the world, you may not have these drastic seasons that we have in North America, but you may have other seasons where it's, sweater weather, whether it's, hats and gloves or whatever you need. We prepare for those things and we become accustomed to them. But there's other seasons which are much more individual, and they're not always in sync with collective seasons. Sometimes the seasons are to do with our winning winning the job, winning the love, the big celebrations, having a baby, starting a family, getting married, graduating from school, getting that perfect job, buying that car, whatever it might be, going on a holiday, traveling around the world, big celebratory events that are just really unique to us and maybe some of our family members that share with us. And then there's other events that can knock us off our feet, knock us off our game, so to speak. Those seasons, the seasons of loss, that we don't know when that's going to happen any more than we know when we're going to have the big wins. We can't 100% predict when those things are going to happen. And we don't get to predict when we're going to have those losses either. We don't really prepare for the losses. It's not something that we collectively, generally talk about. We will say when something happens, when there's a loss, we will sometimes say, well, that's how it goes. But we don't talk about it ahead of time. It's like we're afraid if we talk about it, it will make it happen. And that isn't true. If we talk about winter, it doesn't make it happen. If we don't talk about it, it won't come. Of course it's coming. That is life. There's birth, there's all that in-between stuff, and then there's death. It's going to happen to each of us, and to different degrees, depending on how many people we have in our small circles. We will probably experience the loss of a loved one. We will probably experience the loss of a job or a relationship. Whether it's short-term or long-term, we could experience that. We'll have friends in our lives. We meet them, we have months or even years of great friendship, and then all of a sudden they go in a different direction, or you go in a different direction. And no matter if you're the one making that choice to change and go in a different direction or not, you will experience a degree of loss, a degree of grief, because it's something you've known. If you move from an old house to a new house, it's so exciting. You had a new home, a new space to decorate and rearrange your furniture, and always feels really great. But there is also a level of loss, something that you've known all the time, that you come to expect was part of your regular environment, is no longer there. Maybe the things you saw every day, the school bus coming down the street, or a certain neighbor that you always said hello to. So everything in life has both that excitement, that celebratory stuff, and also the other side of it, which is noticing that there's a void, there's an emptiness of something that was there and is no longer there. And it's the same with people. There's a saying, people come into your life for a reason, a season, and sometimes a lifetime. So it's not that we don't know, but we don't talk about it, and we don't often prepare. And when I'm saying we, I'm talking generalities here, not specifics, because there are people who do talk about loss, and they do talk about winning and losing in much healthier ways than is collectively, traditionally done, I would say, from my experience and the people I've met along my journey. For example, when my son was killed in a vehicle accident 10 years ago, I had people telling me it was the worst thing that could ever happen to me. But they weren't talking about me. They were talking about themselves. They were projecting. And this is really important to notice. It doesn't make them wrong. It just is an awareness that I had. It wasn't the worst thing that happened to me. It was the worst thing they could imagine happening to them. So sometimes people will avoid people who've gone through or who are going through a loss. You'll notice that relationships, when a marriage ends, sometimes you lose a lot of friends too. friends that were part of your spouse's friend network, people that you thought were your friends too, but all of a sudden maybe they're not anymore. So it's an interesting situation, but it's as if there's a bit of a fear. If I continue to communicate with you, what happened to you will happen to me. Of course, we know this is not true. It's not contagious. Although, the more we learn about vibration and how we are magnets for that vibration that we are resonating at, I can see where some of that might come into play, where people do feel that being around someone who is in a low vibration, they don't want to feel that way. And so they avoid it. But we aren't really avoiding it's kind of an illusion that we're avoiding it, because we cannot avoid the lows of life any more than the highs, the in-betweens. It's going to happen. It is a up and down road. And the more we understand that and come to realize it is a season, it's not going to last forever. We are going to go through it, and how we go through it is a choice. And every choice we make is going to have a consequence. So if we have someone that was in our lives and is no longer in our life, and we're having a lot of regrets that we didn't spend enough time with them, didn't do the certain things that we should have done, that we think we should have done, then it's going to take longer to grieve that, because we can't change it. But we can't change anything in our past. So once, coming to grips with that and understanding that the best we can do is the best we can do, and when we know better, we do better, in giving ourselves forgiveness for the things that we didn't know. And you could say, well, you should have known. And that may be true. Maybe you should have. But that's a huge assumption, because we're all living individual lives, and we all have our different points of view, and we've all are seeing the world through a very unique lens. We have collective awareness, but we also have this very unique point of view, and we internalize things differently. What someone said to us, the way they looked at us, the way things occurred, we are going to internalize those moments in our lives through our specific filters, through what happened before. So everything in life before today prepared me for today. And as the holiday season becomes really a part of our awareness, and we see the marketing in the stores, the shopping, the festive clothing and lights and music and everything that's going on, sometimes that can really be a challenge for someone who's not feeling like participating, but also maybe feeling pressured to do it anyway. And that's where from my own experience, I say and recommend really to go within and decide for yourself. Am I doing this out of obligation, or am I putting other people's needs before my own? And we know that we have to take care of ourselves first, or we can't take care of anyone else. We know this. And yet, often we still do it. You have to go to that holiday Christmas party at work because your job depends on it. But does it really? These are questions you have to ask yourself, and what are the priorities? If you normally are the person that hosts the family Christmas dinner or birthday dinner or whatever is coming up, the New Year's party, and this year you actually don't want to do it, your heart's not in it. And what I've learned about vibration, it's so incredible to me that we don't talk about this more. But the vibration of joy and the vibration of deep sorrow is so vast. It's huge. There are different ends of the spectrum. Or, deep feelings of anger and feelings of excitement. Huge different. And no wonder it's painful. No wonder it's painful to be pushed into a situation where, to be in an environment that is meant to be obligatory joy when you are in deep sorrow or deep anger or deep resentment. When you're feeling those low vibration energies and you're being told you have to get dressed up, fake joy. Faking joy has to be one of the most painful things to try to do. Putting on a holiday dinner when your heart's not in it is painful. And you're not honoring yourself. Even though there are certain things, if you have young children and you want to, create a festive event for them, you're going through something in your adult world, or relationship problems or loss of a job or whatever, and you still want to provide that happy atmosphere for your children. I think that making that effort for your children is important, but at the same time, you don't have to do it in the same way you might have done it when you actually are feeling all that joy. And you can be honest with your children. You don't have to tell them the details or create more drama or trauma for them by telling them all the details. I lost my job. We might lose our home. We're going to, all that kind of thing. You don't have to tell them the details, but children are smart and they are going to pick up on your vibration. They are going to know that you're stressed, that you're upset, that you're, in a frustrated situation. And have some compassion for yourself and some respect for yourself and for them, to help them to see life isn't always up high. There are lows. There are situations that we can face. Age appropriate, of course. But, get some help to navigate those hard times. But as a society, I think, and as community and as families, we do better to help each other navigate through these difficult challenges, not by shielding children completely from the fact that this is life, that, loss can happen. Like when my father died and I was 9 years old, it was shocking. And the way the adults handled it was added to my trauma. It didn't ease my pain or my confusion because they didn't know how to talk about it. They didn't know how to ask a child how they felt or to ease the concerns. Because we don't honor the fact that these are parts of life and that it's okay to be angry about it. It's okay to be angry when you're a child and your father dies and throws a curveball into your life. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be sad. It's okay for an adult who's expected to be married for life and the marriage breaks down. It's okay to be angry. It's just healthy expressions of anger and sorrow. I think we would probably, this is my perception, is from the different times in my life that I've had very traumatic events, breakdown of a marriage, breakdown of financial loss, and all those situations. It would be far better to be prepared to not be looking at life totally through rose-colored glasses, although optimism and hope and faith are really important. There's also an awareness that life is a cycle. It's a seasonal. We do go through different events. The whole experience of being a human, having this human experience, is to have challenges, to learn from them, to grow, to expand. It's very seldom that you know of a person who comes to this life and really and truly has no challenges. We all have challenges, different challenges. And that's why having compassion for each other, and even if we haven't gone through something similar, we can have compassion, understanding, and if they're friends, to listen to them, to be open to their hearing them express their anger, their fear, their deep sorrow. And I think talking about it and acknowledging it, not denying it, acknowledging that you're feeling these things and that it will help it to move energy instead of it getting stuck in us and us denying it and then regurgitating it and resenting and all of the feelings we'll have by not expressing it, not being able to look at it objectively or looking at it from a bigger picture or a different point of view. And it is in that the real healing can happen. But when we deny it and we try and force ourselves into being happy when we're not, or even forced anger, you should be outraged by this. But I don't feel outraged. But you should be. Oh, it's a force. When inside of each one of us, we have a navigation system, we have an inner knowing of what things are for us. What is our point of view on something? Like, for example, when my son was killed in this vehicle accident, initially, of course, I was shocked and I didn't expect it. And, he was only 29 and all that. And so there's a whole range of emotions. Now, admittedly, I did have a very mystical experience around all of that. But I still had, even though I knew he wasn't dead, I knew that life goes on. I knew that it was his way off the planet. And it was much preferable to me than to have him suffer with something like a disease or something that he would suffer for a long time before he left the planet. This was very quick, and it was I believe it was his choice to leave that way. And I believe we all have choice in this before we come here, not that we know it in our human form. I was angry at the driver. I was angry at, life. And I think that's normal. But I realized that my anger was simply that life didn't go the way I wanted it to go. And when we don't have control, and we know we don't have control, but when it's in our face and we see, well, darn it, I really didn't have any control. That sometimes can make us feel really angry or resentful or hopeless or throwing our hands up. Why didn't it work? And I see this also in our young people who are saturated by negative messaging that, they're losing their freedom or the planet is not being taken care of or all these things. And if you look through history, we've always had people who were doomsday people, that this was going to be the end. This was going to be the undoing of humanity. And so there's a lot of grief collectively and a lot of anger being expressed. And a lot of that anger people don't even know why they're angry. They just become a habit. And you can become addicted to those emotions, that adrenaline rush of the anger and just venting all the time and finding no calm, no peace, because you feel frustrated and helpless and powerless. And someone comes along and feeds that, well, here's some power. You can vent at other people. You can here's someone to hate. Here's someone to be angry at. And I do think it is part of our collective season of grief and sorrow. As we're seeing the old ways dying, and as it's dying off, it's like we've ripped the carpet off and we're seeing the corruption, the decay in the foundation of our systems, that are things that are not working. So much homelessness that's unnecessary. It's that I truly believe that poverty is the root of all evil. It is that systems that have created poverty and the cycles of poverty that create turmoil in families, that there's not enough to feed, not enough to shelter, not enough to provide. And it's not true. There is enough. As Gandhi said, there is enough for all people's needs, just maybe not enough for all the greed. And that is coming to light, and people are becoming angry about it, about the imbalances and about the inequality and human rights that people didn't pay a lot of attention to before. As a collective, a lot of people accepted their station in life, so to speak, and never expected to thrive. They were being born, having children, watching them die because of poverty situations, and not expecting anything more. This was my lot because of the color of my skin, or where I was born, or the gender I was, or all these different things that were created, ideals that were created to benefit the few at the expense of the masses. And I think that that is playing into the grief that is being experienced, that we are grieving a loss of belief systems, things we thought we could depend on, things that we thought we put our trust in, instead of putting our trust and faith into a higher power, into our own inner knowing, trusting our ability to learn, to observe, and to assess the world, and to know that it's, to not believe the stories we've been told, the indoctrinations, and instead we began to think for ourselves. And sometimes in our anger and grief and sorrow and vulnerability, there have been people who've exploited that, who have, we want to ease our pain. We want to, it's not natural to be in pain all the time, hurting emotionally. The process of life is ups and downs, and they don't have to be super high and super low all the time. There can be this sort of a steady flow, a stream, up and down, but gentle, not extremes. And right now we're seeing a lot of extremes. And a lot of that is because of misunderstandings and a lot of propaganda and people exploiting other people's fear. And so that is playing a role in our current collective seasonal holiday events. There's extremes. We see excess, and then we see poverty. And we can't make sense of it. We're having a hard time making sense of it. And we've lost that old, even though it wasn't true, it was a belief system. And letting go of beliefs is hard because you believe it until you don't. And when you don't, then you start to wonder, what else was a lie? What else have I been told that's not true? And so I share from the point of view of having my beliefs were shattered in many times in different layers. And it is a layering of the systems, a letting go of beliefs in certain people are entitled and other people are not. Certain people are good, certain people are bad. And starting to look at people from a more holistic point of view and understanding that we all have the potential to do good or to do evil. We have that potential, and it's always a choice. And it's a choice of how we are going to celebrate different seasons of our lives and to honor those, all of them. This is really important. And social media plays a big part in how we feel about ourselves, and whether or not, the memes that are going around that are really self-help and encouraging and all of that are also actually a contrast to what we're actually being taught to do, which is, and have been conditioned to do, which is to like and share and like and share and like and share the messaging that is not connecting us to human beings. It's like we're part of the computer program. And so the expectations are unrealistic. The things that we used to be really satisfied with are, we're competing, even though sometimes we don't even realize we're competing. Someone posts a picture that they baked a cake. Now I'm going to go and bake a cake and try and bake it even better. Maybe I don't even realize I'm going to do that. These are subliminal, suggestive ideas, influencers. But what are they influencing? Are we influencing each other to be better human beings, to connect more, to reach out and help our fellow human being? Are we, we're being hyped up and responding with a like or a dislike or an angry emoji, and it's not really helping us to process our grief or our joy. Or take real concrete action in making changes, planting a tree and helping the planet, as opposed to just clicking on a protest or a complaint. When someone vents and we agree or we vent along with them, but what have we done to change anything other than venting? These, to me, are a little bit part of the problem and part of the solution, in the sense that we can connect to more people, but how are we connecting? That's a part of this seasonal grief and sorrow, and in the contrast to the very high of the holiday season. And I think that's part of the reason why people feel the sorrow more, is because there is this very real contrast. And I think it's important to have the holiday seasons and the joyful expressions to, as much as possible, take our collective grief and sorrow and allow it to move us, not be stuck in it, but move us to positive action, positive solutions, not by fighting our fellow human, not by hating our fellow human, but helping them, being insulted by the greed, by the abuses of other human beings, and the war machine, the war mentality of fight us versus them all the time. And instead, taking that deep human collective sorrow and grief and allowing it to move us into positive change, because we are evolving. And it's just that we're seeing so much of the old way that we're seeing the crumbling and the decay and the corruption of the foundation. And it makes us sad. And some of it is sadness, as in when we've lost a loved one. There's sadness in the things we didn't know, or the things we didn't do, or the things we carry a lot of guilt and shame for things that we had no control over. And so there's a false sense of power over things that we really don't have power, and then a disempowerment over the things we do have control over. We have control over our kindness, our compassion, our generosity, our individual creativity, and brilliant ideas and inventions to make the world a better place. We have control over those things. And if we waste our energy on just venting and anger and frustration and just complaining about what isn't, complaining that we lost something, we lost the job, we lost the house, we lost the loved one, then we stay stuck there in the past because we can't change it. We have no control over that. But what we do have control over is our present, which will influence our future. Thank you for listening. I hope you'll join me for part 2. That's the end of part 1. And in part 2, I will go into more exploration into the influence of social media and how it's contributed to our disconnection. And in many ways, I think it's part of the grief that many of us are feeling. and I offer you some ideas, some ways of looking at it that maybe you hadn't thought of. So thanks so much, and we'll see you in part 2.